You would never know it from what the politicians are saying these days, but foreign trade makes us stronger, not weaker. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to better navigate these turbulent times. Foreign trade is getting a bad rap these days here and overseas. GOP presidential candidates are talking tough on trade, while Democrats follow the protectionist predilections of unions. Former President Trump has proposed putting a 10% tariff on everything imported in the U.S. and slapping even higher tariffs on stuff made in countries that engage in alleged currency manipulation or unfair trade practices. A tariff is a sales tax, pure and simple. When the U.S. imposes a tariff on an import, it is imposing a sales tax. A 10% import sales tax would cost the American people over $300 billion. Ouch! Unfortunately, China's growing aggression is stoking protectionist fevers, leading U.S. policymakers and politicians to shun deals that reduce barriers with other countries and regions. For example, both the U.S. and Britain would benefit enormously from a free trade agreement. Yet, after encouraging noises, President Biden is backing off. Nor is the U.S. pursuing a deal with Asian Pacific nations that would lessen China's growing economic power there. Free trade is getting fewer defenders these days than free speech. And here's what is so sobering and worrying. Growing protectionism could lead to an unintended tragedy, just as it did before World War II. What triggered the Great Depression was the passage by the U.S. of the Smoot-Hawley tariff that raised taxes on a mind-numbing array of import products, setting off a global trade war that eviscerated trade. This was followed by other economic idiocies, such as sharply raising taxes. The Depression created the conditions for the Nazi Revolution in Germany, which in turn brought on the Second World War. With that horror in mind, Allied policymakers put the free world on the road to reducing tariffs after the war. Let's get one profound fact clear. The vast growth of international trade since World War II has been crucial for the enormous increases in living standards since that catastrophe. We'd all be significantly poorer without it. For instance, what enabled the initial cell phone to become the handheld supercomputer we take for granted today was the intricate international supply chains that grew as trade barriers receded. The raps against trade don't hold up. A trade deficit, for instance, is not the equivalent of a company losing money. It is a meaningless measure of a country's economic health. It ignores the flow of investment money into the U.S. The U.S. routinely had trade deficits as we became the mightiest nation in history. As for manufacturing, what hurt that sector was a torrent of largely unnecessary government regulations. The easing of this abuse under Donald Trump helped that part of the economy to do far better. China accounts for 11% of our international trade. Surely, our politicians can separate trade policies with Beijing from those with most of the rest of the world. By the way, putting tariffs on imports from Asian countries like South Korea will make them more dependent on China. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening. Do send in your comments and suggestions. I look forward to being with you soon again.